Hi, Service Innovation Class 5, Understanding Your Environment. What did we cover last week? We looked at job to be done, trying to understand what was important with processes, remembering that service really is a process. Then we looked at the ecosystem, trying to understand how the ecosystem worked. We looked at personas here and empathy maps to try and understand it, and then we tried to combine that to create a customer job to be done in a relatively straightforward manner. So today what are we going to do? We're going to look at life cycle of high value equipment, how outcomes change over the operational life of the equipment, customer journeys, and we'll look at this again and again. Customer journeys to me are very important, and we'll look at touch points needed on customer journeys. So basically today we're looking at the learning how customers interact with their equipment and how we can interact with them. Watch the two videos. I think they're both very, very useful for this. Life cycle of high value equipment. Here I've got a picture book, and I think a picture book is not a bad way of actually showing the life cycle. From the beginning of life to the end of life, going to the mid of life. Here it is as a car. I've got a Beetle. Going from beautiful new off the production line to something which is worn out to being refurbished and then put back to another use. This is what happens to high value equipment. Cars are good. I have a friend of mine that does it for cars. And I think the car is relatively straightforward to do it for. Power plant is quite a little bit harder for us. Question for you is, how long is the equipment life? What was the design life? What was the production life? Think about all of those and you'll see they're all different. Also, over the life cycle of high value equipment, you'll see that there's basic services which are called for automatically, and there's life cycle services which you have to stimulate. They change. The equipment changes as well. How's it going to be used over its lifetime? What happens? Are there trigger points which mean that it changes? Here I have an upgrade after year 18. So something major changes. We've had a new invigoration of its life. And then it starts to get used again, and then it starts to drop off. How do we build this up? What is it? How do we do this for any piece of equipment? What's going on? Installation, inspections, initial spares, routine, accidents, unplanned inspections, an upgrade, decommissioning. Where was the original design life? We find the original design life typically on big equipment, could be 15, 20 years, yet people use the equipment much, much longer. So we go through every step. What's the trigger? What's the value proposition that we need to deliver in terms of service at each of these steps? And who takes responsibility? Who sells the initial spares? Never, ever, ever let the new equipment people set the first spares with the equipment. They'll give them away. You won't set the price into the market at the appropriate price level. Routine maintenance. Who does it? How do we help the owner, operator actually do the routine maintenance? Planned inspections, revisions. Who does it? What's got responsibility? How do we deliver it? Unplanned inspections. Doesn't matter whose scope it was on, it needs to be fixed. Upgrades. Do we offer upgrades enough? Do we use this as a way to optimize our monopoly on the equipment? Optimize a high level of margin and a high level of customer capture. When do we put the upgrades in? What happens at the end of life? Do we buy it back? Or do we take it back and we charge them for the decontamination of it? Think about how to take that. It controls the market and prevents cannibalization. What happens when the OEM no longer exists? Customers' markets. We need to understand customers' markets. How are they using the equipment? How do things change over the life of the equipment? What are the triggers? Here I've got a lease ownership and then it's private ownership, but I've got two phases actually within the private ownership. Think about how that avatar then changes over its life cycle. This is the avatar model we've got. You can do it here for a printer, do it for any piece of equipment. What does it produce? What does it need? What value does it create? And what waste does it produce? Every interaction must have a customer value proposition against it. No excuses. Customer journeys. Now we know what the value propositions are, when we should be interacting with them. Now we can go back and have a look at the customer journey. Understand how it works. And it's very close to the job to be done mapping. Here I'm using the blueprint and the customer journey. Blueprint is as planned. The journey was as is. Think about the experience points. Chesborough showed a journey to a restaurant. Now remember, segmentation. What is the outcome? Is this a quick meal, or is this a 5-star meal, or is it a takeaway? Uber is excellent at doing this customer journey mapping. This is a very practical technique for service innovation. Map it out in detail. I want to see what's connected with what, where it meets, where it doesn't meet. Touch points are different. Think of service situations which are important. 24-hour emergency call out is much different to something which is a planned inspection, so the touch points should be different. I want you to draw in-class the life cycle of a car and the touch points for a breakdown situation and for a planned service. Now then, can you describe the life cycle of high-value equipment? How can outcomes change and describe the outcomes over the operational life of the equipment? That really means you have to put the people around it. Can you create a customer journey or a blueprint? Yes, you can. And show me the different touch points for different types of services for different customer journeys. By the end of this, you've learned how to describe your customers, how they use the equipment and how they interact with them, and how they therefore interact with your firm. Thanks.